So I've brought Sally Rooney's Normal People, the novel, and also the scripts to represent the TV show.
Yeah, I'll hold this one then.
You can have that one. I've always felt a pretty strong connection to the characters, and I mean, when I read it for the first time, I was 18 and it was lockdown, and I'd had it sat on my shelf for ages. Yeah. And everyone's like, "You got to read it, it's great," and I was like, "Yeah, I'll get around to it." And then I read it, and I couldn't put it down. Yeah. And the next morning I picked it up again, and I read the whole thing again. And
wait, so you read the whole book twice in 2 days?
Yeah. Wow. I read the whole book in one
intense.
sitting, and then picked it up and read it again the next day. And I mean, there wasn't much to do. It was lockdown. Yeah. So I just kept reading it. We was all sat alone in our rooms, and I was like, these characters mean so much to me.
All the tears.
All the tears.
Yeah.
But what I find really interesting about the book compared to the TV show. Yeah. You get to, you see their inner thoughts. So that when you're watching the show and you're like, what is he actually thinking right now?
Yeah, it's all implied, isn't it, by the facial expressions or the body language or the dialogue.
It's in here, and sometimes it's not, because sometimes the chapters are from Connell's perspective. Yeah. And he has no idea what Marianne's thinking. Yeah. And sometimes it's the other way around. But you're like.
Yeah. So it goes between first person, his voice and hers.
Yeah, it's kind of, it doesn't do it like really obviously, but you'll be like, oh, this chapter's from his perspective, but it's not like chapter 2, Connell. Yeah. It's just like sometimes it'll show his thoughts as opposed to hers.
So why do you think that, like you said, you have a really deep connection with the characters? Why do you think that is?
I mean, when I was in school, I always felt like I was very much like Marianne. Looking back, like when she was in school, like that.
More of an outsider than like the popular sort of.
Yeah, very academic.
Yeah.
I think she's better than everyone. Yeah. Like just a bit of a bitch. Like I was like, oh, she's just like me. Oh dear. But maybe.
I guess when you're 18 too, you're like at that peak time where you can connect with someone. Is this a crab?
No. What is that?
I don't know. Probably some plastic.
And then I was like, oh well, maybe if I was like her then, maybe I'll be like her when I go to university, like when she goes to college and gets so cool. And I wasn't.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that.
Not at the start. I was very much like, it's funny because I thought I was Marianne, but I was actually Connell. Like, when he's like so isolated and sad, and like, oh, I was just like him. Yeah. Especially in like the first year before I sort of solidified like my friends and stuff. Yeah. And I remember rereading it a couple of years into uni and be like, oh yeah. Yeah. Oh dear. But both of them because they're so different but so similar at the same time. Yeah. They have
which is how things things are like between actual people. Like a lot of the time dramas and books like this can sort of portray stuff in a way that's maybe not very it's not linked in like an actual how things actually are. But I know it's literally called Normal People.
Yeah,
it does seem like it
really
is like
feels
grounded.
Like it. Yeah. Like it's not so binary.
And like the way that they all the problems that they have. When I saw the TV show, I always thought that all the problems that they have could just be overcome by if they had clear communication. But but people don't.
People don't.
People don't talk like that. People hold their feelings back and don't say things that they want to say.
I mean, it's
feel like that's really important to have things like this.
Definitely. There's a bit where he has to leave Dublin to go back home because he can't afford to stay there over the summer. Yeah. And he wants to ask her if he can stay with her over the summer. Yeah. But because of their class differences, he's like too ashamed to. Yeah. And she doesn't offer because she doesn't think that he'd want to, and neither one of them say anything, and then they end up breaking up just because of their like shame. Yeah. And it's just if they just spoke to each other. Yeah. But then I think it's really important especially when you're like 18, like you said, it's really important to have some, like your art, have a link to that, the way things actually are, and not have false expectations. Yeah, definitely.
Because I feel like a lot of the time in like teen dramas and things, like everyone's like not professing their love, but it's like it's all so clear and shiny and perfect.
There's one quote in the book, I think there's two, but one of the quotes like Connell actually says. Yeah. And everyone loves it, but it's not in the show. And it's like, I'm not a religious person, Marianne, but I think God made you for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's incredible. Why wasn't that in the show?
Yeah.
And then I read that. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Like, that's such a beautiful line about, like, it's never really like they love each other. It's that they're made for each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's such like a.
Do you think that speaks to you, like, with Dan? Like, I feel like the two of you, like, that's how it seems.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, like, knowing each other for as long as they have, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Like, all of the couples that I've known, like, you definitely seem like you're made for each other. Like, I can't imagine you with, I can't imagine you with, like, anyone else.
No, it's strange. It's like, they're so clearly soulmates, but they're so terrible together. Like, every time they're together, it's just a disaster, even though they're clearly so perfect.
Yeah. And is there anything you've taken away from the book?
Oh, so much.
Like a lesson or a way of thinking? Like, has it changed the way that you've made decisions or acted?
Yeah, there's a part in it, you know, in the bit where Connell goes to therapy.
Yeah.
In the book, there's a part later on where he's at like a writer's like social thing.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how, like, even though he's still like having a really tough time, he can still have a nice time.
Yeah.
And it says life offers up these moments of joy despite everything. And I'm like, wow. That is something that I kind of want to live by. Yeah. Even if everything is falling apart, you can still be happy. Yeah. You don't have to sit in your gloom constantly. Yeah. Which I think is really important. And I think that it's just such a lesson to sort of live by. I kind of want to get it tattooed. Oh yeah, like, that's a good idea. I think it's a great way of thinking too, because if you're after like the perfect life, you're always going to be unhappy. Yeah, completely. Like, you can't constantly strive for perfection and constant happiness. Yeah. And that's something that he says. Like, he says he left his hometown hoping for a better life, and he hasn't got it. And like, just a different life. Just a different life. And it's like, that is how you feel, you know, like, we're both from quite small towns. Like, you move somewhere else, like, my life's going to change, it's going to be incredible. And it's like, it's not, but that's okay. Yeah. Like, and I mean, I was in such a reading slump these past few months, and I was like, oh, I need to reread this because I know I'm going to be doing this. And I was like, oh, I'm back, I'm so back. Like, I love this book. I want to read more books again. So I think it's like what always brings me back to reading and caring about books. Rereading it, I sort of felt, I don't know, more sympathy, like, for the characters. Like, when I read it the first time, obviously the story was fresh. It was, I was engrossed in, like, the plot of it all. But when you're reading it, knowing what happens at the end, you're like, oh, it's like when you watch or read Shakespeare and, like, you know what happens because they tell you at the start. Yeah. And it's like, you know that it's doomed. Yeah. Like, I'm like, it's just so sad. Like, it's like a tragedy. It's just like it's like a modern tragedy. Yeah. Especially like the way it's written and the prose and everything. It's so like, it's so normal, but it's so artistic at the same time. She doesn't use speech marks. Oh, okay. So like all of the text and all of the speech, it just looks the same. Yeah. Which some people really hate. She doesn't do it in any of the books. Okay. And I think she does it because she wants to emphasize like how bad at communicating they are. Like, okay, so it really emphasizes that miscommunication. And I guess if, as a reader, you're confused as to, is it something they're thinking, is it description, or is it speech, then that's just emphasizing her point, isn't it? Yeah, it's exactly that, which I absolutely love, but some people are like, I just couldn't read it because there wasn't quotation marks. You have to sort of change gears. Yeah, you have to really read it, because it does say like, said Marianne or whatever. Yeah. Especially if you've just read like loads of books that have speech marks, and I also like how you said that you've got a lot of sympathy for characters now, like since reading, and I like that a book or something can inspire that, because I feel like empathy with people, like in your day-to-day life, like a lot of the time I don't jump to instant empathy with people. I try to not judge people, but a lot of the time, like, you can't help it. But it's nice that a book can inspire
inspire you to get in that mood of maybe being a little bit more kind towards people?
Yeah, when I like look back on it and some of the actions and choices that they make.
It's like a parable.
Yeah.
Something to learn from.
It's very much like I've been there, I get it.
Yeah.
And it's more of like I relate in a completely different way to the way I did when I was younger.
Yeah. And is it something you can see yourself still being interested in 10 years' time, 20 years' time?
I'd hope so.
Yeah.
And then again, maybe I'd have another completely different outlook on it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
One thing I really sort of appreciate about the book is how it handles sex.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And the TV show as well. Because it's so, especially with Marianne, she goes through this whole sort of journey of not being respected by any men ever.
Right.
In her family, by Connell.
Oh, of course, yeah. Her brother, isn't it?
Her brother is an asshole.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she like is never respected by men, and she like becomes codependent on that as like sexual need.
Yeah, the validation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like with Connell, he like they're all flawed, which is what I like.
Yeah.
Like he uses her, and she feels that like being needed from that.
Yeah.
And then she goes through her whole life just constantly seeking that validation.
Yeah.
And I think that's just like a really...
This is cute, this sand castle is nice.
It's got a little moat
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, so you said she's going through her life with this need.
Yeah, like all of the boyfriends that she has are just terrible people.
Yeah.
Like there's the first guy that she's with at the college.
Yeah.
He's like this huge socialite.
Yeah.
Bit of an asshole, like proper Tory, like rah, I'm at college. And like he's just like, because he's a big name and everyone likes him, therefore they like her, which she never had in school.
Yeah, yeah.
And then she is with one of her like male friends.
Yeah.
And he's like, they end up like in this sort of relationship where he hits her during sex and stuff.
Oh yeah, is that when she goes abroad?
That comes a little later.
Oh, is that later?
Yeah. And she like just assumes that that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And then when she's back with Connell a few years later and she asks him to hit him.
Oh yeah, I remember
to hit her,
that part.
and he's like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, she's just been through like so much because she was hit when she was younger. She feels like she has to be hit now.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's such like a heartbreaking kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I like the way that it handles that. I think it's really interesting.
Open, yeah.
It doesn't like shame
Yeah.
it. Like if you're into that, you're into that. But like, it doesn't. It's not like, yeah, that's fine. It's like there's clearly like a history there.
Yeah, and also the way it's, at least because obviously I've not read the book, but the way it's presented isn't from a judgmental point of view. It's just that's the way things are.
It's just very matter of fact, and
This
it's kind of.
Yeah.
She's been let down by men constantly. But even in the scenes with her and Connell, especially in the TV show,
Yeah.
they're so nice
Yeah.
and so tender. And
Heartfelt.
it's like, yeah, you don't always see that, and it's nice to see it like represented on screen in such like a loving way. And like
especially in the film and TV industry, all the like a lot of sex scenes and like the nudity you see is normally
so
like
gratuitous.
it's all like female nudity, whereas I feel like when I saw the show it was a little bit more
and
more
it
of a
was
balanced
real.
thing. Yeah.
It wasn't like,
Because they had an intimacy coach, I remember
Yeah.
hearing an interview.
I think it was one of the first sort of things to do that, mainstream anyway.
Whereas now I think maybe it's more, I remember the actors saying that they wouldn't want to do it without that.
Yeah, because it's so important, and I think especially when you've got a younger audience, it's important to be like, this is what real life is like.
Yeah.
It's not going to be what you see online, what you see in like stupid films that are like just showing you what you want to see.
Yeah, it's like having a honest map of someone's experiences.
Yeah.
It's so rare, especially in like for media.
Yeah, definitely.
But
and
I think it's really important to have that, because how else are you supposed to, like, sometimes you can't talk to your parents about that.
Oh God, no.
Or your mates, even. You can't talk to your mates, but if you can see it in a book, or read it in a book, or see it in a TV show, then I don't know, I feel like lays ground for more healthy ideas to be born.
And I mean, they show, like, he's always like, is it okay if I do this? Would you like it if I did this? Not, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so respectful, at least in the early part when they're still in school.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
Yeah.
And like, I remember when I watched it for the first time, it just made me cry. Like, it just really, like, I don't know, struck a chord with me, because it's like, it's not so often that you see that.
Yeah.
And someone who's not had like the best experiences in the past with things like that, you watch it and go, oh, this is so nice to see, even though it's the bare minimum.
What do you mean? Because it's sort of, because you don't see it often, so it's nice to know that other people have that.
Yeah. It's so nice to sort of be like, oh, people can be decent.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I was in a completely different relationship and life when I first read this book.
Yeah.
And it was completely different to the one I'm in now.
Yeah.
So it was almost like a wake-up call.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I should probably...
Well, that's amazing. All the times I've spoken to people about artworks that can have these changes, and like the amount of things that it can have an impact on, that's amazing. Like, I
didn't have the like passion and love that they have for each other in my old relationship. And I was like, why don't I feel that way?
Yeah.
And now
I've had the same thing,
Like, now I do, and I understand it. Like, I don't think I'm religious, but I believe God made you for me. Yeah. I never felt that. Yeah. And then I read that, I was like, why don't I feel that?
Yeah. But it's amazing that can come from an artwork, because I feel like when you're engaging with art and books, especially with the time it normally takes. I mean, it seems like you read it quite quickly, but like, it's such a great way to slowly have these thoughts about yourself, and to go into it. Like, when you engage with art, you're engaging in an open way. Yeah, I have always, ever since I was a kid, been very self-inserty. Yeah. Like, I mean, I read the Hunger Games. I was like, what if I was in the Hunger Games? You know, like, I've always been like very. I'm sure you do quite well in the Hunger Games. No, I wouldn't. But like, I've always been very much a reader or reviewer that puts themselves right in. Yeah. And then I did that this time, and I was like, oh, I have some things to do here. Yeah. But I definitely think it's important to like be open to art, because if you just look at it for what it is on the surface, you're never going to change, you're never going to develop as a person. Yeah. And I think you've got to give things time to like have an impact on you. Yeah. And like understand why has this been written? If you had the chance to speak to the author, like, do you have any idea of what you'd say? Because this book has had such a profound impact on your life. I don't know what I could possibly say that she hasn't heard before. Yeah. But I would just sort of say, thank you. You're a brilliant author, and I appreciate how well you just write people. She just seems to understand people on such like a deep level. Yeah. I would just sort of be like, thank you so much for this book. It's changed my life, although people always say that. Yeah. It has, in many ways. It's made me appreciate people more. Think we're good?
Oh, fuck me, I'm getting a double cone.
I think I might go for a paddle. Is everyone okay with that? Yeah. Seems like I've got a towel with... Seems he's got a towel.